Oh, good. Okay. I like being
Live.
asked, you know, so.
Hi, welcome to the East Valley Institute of Technology. This is our March 15th meeting. I would like to call this board meeting to order, and we will start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Mr. Howell to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America.
United States of America.
To the republic for which it stands,
a nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and justice for all.
Okay. The first subject is approval of our regular meeting minutes from February 22nd, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Fleetham. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask Ms. Boggs to call for the vote.
Hold on, I'm not ready yet.
That's okay.
Okay, ready?
We're ready.
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Doolin,
Aye.
sorry, Cleveland,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Hobson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to B, which is the special meeting minutes from February 25th. We are recommending approval. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
I've got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask Ms. Boggs to call for the vote.
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Doolin,
Aye.
Cleveland,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, and Hobson.
Aye.
We will be skipping agenda item 4, which is call to the public, unless someone tells me we have any calls to the public. I don't see anyone in the room, but in case there was a virtual. Okay. Moving on, number 5 is our consent agenda. I would like to make a motion to combine approval of the consent agenda A through G.
I'll second the motion for the consent agenda A through G.
I have a motion by myself and a second by Mr. Lane. Any discussion? I have one quick question. How are we doing on the disposal? I know that we talked about this a lot, but have we gotten rid of all the,
Board Member Doolin?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're slowly but surely getting rid of all of the stuff that at one time was housed throughout the organization. This is part of that, to be truthful. And so it's
Okay.
going to go on the surplus auction and in order to dispose of it.
so we've cleaned out those pods
We
or?
have, yes, we have.
Excellent.
Yes, we have.
Yay.
Yay.
So how are you selling the motor vehicles? Do you have an auction going on that? or-
Yeah, it's the public auction.
Okay. Excellent. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask Ms. Boggs to call for the vote.
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Doolin,
Aye.
Cleveland,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Hobson.
Aye.
Okay, agenda item 7 is a policy revision. We have a first read. I will,
Madam President, I think you skipped number 6, personnel.
oh, I did. I was really fast.
You were fast.
Okay, number 6, personnel. I'm going to make a motion to combine A and B under 6. That's for our personnel and also our new hire of instructional staff.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first by myself, a second by Mr. Hart. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Doolin,
Aye.
Cleveland,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Hobson.
Aye.
Okay, now we can go to 7A, which is a policy revision, and this is a first read. So I will turn it over to Kevin Kelbel to go ahead and, did I say it right?
You did.
I'm getting so good. I will turn it over to you to go ahead and inform us of this policy change.
There, as a consequence of getting some new software for the payroll and for issuing contracts, the policies that we had in place for requesting leave no longer applied because you don't fill out the ancient 4-part form and hand it in. You do it all through the software now. So the first 7 policy changes merely reflect that when you request leave, you do it electronically, not with the 4-part paper form anymore. So that's all those G policies are. GCQC, there was a reference to ARS 15545 that only applies to teachers, but since it was a policy that applies to all professionals, I just took out the reference in the intro to 545. It's still a legal reference at the end of the document. That's just cleaning up the language. We're deleting GCCAE and GCCBE because those were just the old form and they were exhibits, so we're not using them anymore. They're going to come out. And the last one is a regulation regarding the use of or the possession of pepper spray or a stun gun that does not shoot a projectile. There was a discrepancy between the board policy, the student handbook, and the adult ed handbook. The board policy does not classify pepper spray or a non-projectile issuing stun gun as a weapon. The student handbook doesn't, but the adult ed handbook was banning pepper spray. But considering the current concerns that some students have for safety in the parking lot at night, asking them to leave that in their car doesn't make sense because they need it on the way to the car. So the policy, as the regulation as we drafted it, allows only 2 types of personal defense items: pepper spray, non-projectile issuing, stun guns, and they can't be displayed. It's all came up when somebody had a pepper spray thing on their keychain sitting on their desk, and that looked like a violation of the adult ed policy. So they can have them, they just should not display them, except for obviously when they're using it in the necessary circumstances. So that was it.
I have a quick question on that. Have we looked to see if we have any other conflicts between the college catalog, the student handbook, and the adult handbook?
Not specifically. I've read them both, and obviously that one didn't jump out at me. But if I didn't see any, but when they pop up, we'll fix them.
Okay, great. And we have no vote on that, so we'll come back with a second read at the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay, moving on to 7B, which is discussion regarding embedded credits. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over. This is public discussion and information. I'll turn it over to Dr. Wilson.
Thank you. Governing board members, I believe it was maybe 2 meetings ago, there was some question or discussion and more information sought by the board regarding embedded credits. There's a gentleman in the organization that knows far more about the embedded credit process than I do, and so I've asked him to join us tonight to kind of walk through what that process looks like. But as a quick overview, remember, or for your information, the idea behind embedded credits is that within our programs, we oftentimes teach content that is taught in traditional classrooms as well. So for example, in our health science programs, our entry-level programs to many of our health classes, covers anatomy and physiology. And so by creating this opportunity of articulating in our programming what standards are covered in other content area classes allows the opportunity for an embedded credit. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that, but the goal behind it is a student in our health science programs that comes to our health science program their first year can get an elective credit from EVIT, but also, if the sitting high school is in agreement, can be awarded a science credit for that same class. And so what you wind up having is an opportunity where students are being able to maximize not only their credits, but their learning opportunities by participating in EVIT programming. And so Mr. Howell, who knows much more about the embedded credit process than I do, is going to kind of walk you through what that looks like, how you get there, and then I'll come back and we'll have a little bit more of a discussion, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay? Mr. Howell?
Dr. Wilson, you're too kind when you say I'm an expert on this. I know enough to be dangerous. Board, thank you for having me here tonight. So embedded credit typically has 2 major components required for the credit to be passed or to be accepted by the homeschools. One is that it's recognized by the Board of Regents as a CTE course that is allowed to have the embedded credit for that academic course. So if it's math, they recognize that you can have an embedded credit for construction in math. That's an example. You can have science embedded credit for anatomy and physiology, as another example, because they've been approved by the state, basically. The other component is that you have an instructor who is certified in that academic area. The only reason we're able to do embedded credit with anatomy and physiology is because our instructors were certified to teach science. And without that, I believe, from what I was told, we would not be able to offer those embedded credits. In fact, at one point, we had teachers who were not certified, and I think we did some funny stuff where we had the teacher of record be myself, because I was always science certified. So I was a teacher of record for all of the courses, as we got the other teachers certified in science, which required basically to take the skill aptitude test for science. Because typically our anatomy and physiology instructors have the science credit in their college work to be able to get certified. They just have to take that knowledge exam. Now, whether that's the case for, let's say, construction, I kind of doubt it. That would take some work. That's how I understand the embedded credit situation here in Arizona. I do know that in New York it's different, and I think it's different because they offer two different types of high school diplomas, and it allows them to be a little more lax on that with the CTE. In fact, I believe they even have an outside agency that does the crosswalking for them in order to get those embedded credits. But again, that's one example I was able to find. Is there other information?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Howell, part of what has to happen in order for an organization to apply to the Board of Regents for an embedded credit is that there has to be a crosswalk of the standards. Can you kind of walk us through what that looks like?
Sure. So it's a rather lengthy document. I think the one for anatomy and physiology was 28 pages long, in which we took every single unit of instruction and crosswalked it to the science standards to show how we were incorporating the science standards into our course. And we did that for every single unit of instruction. It also is typical for you to list the text that's used, as well as learning objectives, linking all of those things together with the activities, the lab portion of the course, objectives, all that. So bringing them all together.
And so after you do the crosswalk, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Howell, you do the crosswalk, you submit it to the Board of Regents, in which they review the application process, and if they're not satisfied, they'll kick it back to you and you do some work. But eventually, at some point in time, the hope is that the Arizona Board of Regents approves the embedded credit opportunity. In the backup I sent in your board book, you'll see the current programs, the current classes we offer that have approved embedded credits by the Arizona Board of Regents, and what the credit can be awarded for or to by a sending district. You'll see below that in previous years, we had a number of other programs that were also approved by the Board of Regents for embedded credit. The reason why we haven't gone through the process of getting those programs reapproved is because the standards changed, and so as a result, we've got to go back through the process again to crosswalk, which we're willing to do. The challenge becomes that ultimately we can have as many embedded credit opportunities available. They only matter, in a sense, if the sending district accepts them. So, we can petition the Arizona Board of Regents to allow for embedded credits in certain programs. We can do the crosswalk, we can do the work. The Arizona Board of Regents can accept it and approve it. But if it's not approved by or accepted by a sending partnering district, then the embedded credit can't be awarded to the student, because ultimately it rests with the sending district's willingness to accept that embedded credit.
And might I add that the big hang-up with district accepting it is, do you have a certified teacher teaching it? That's like
Correct.
number one.
Does that teacher have to be highly qualified for title?
Yes, in order to be highly qualified, they have to have the certificate in that area and pass one that includes passing the knowledge exam.
Professional development along the way and the whole package then, huh?
unfortunately.
Now, this primarily affects our secondary students? Is there anything with their adult ed, maybe community college, similar type credit or something, or is that?
Embedded credit, to my knowledge, is only for high school students.
Correct.
I just was curious, I didn't have any idea, so.
So I have a question about the embedded credits. My ears, you might, as I'm here longer, when I hear the word construction, you'll notice that I kind of a response. You use that, I think, as a way that construction would be more difficult.
Correct. Yeah.
And so, and the reason being for that is why?
They would have to have the math credits at a college level on their transcript and pass the knowledge exam in order to become a certified math teacher.
There's a way around that. And
So in other words, so the person that, the instructor that we have at EVIT, in the construction program would have to be a certified math.
Well, they have to be highly qualified. One way is to become a certified math teacher.
So as for instance, a journeyman electrician has taken 4 years of highly qualified math, clearly would be college level if that's what you're gonna look. It's probably more advanced than that, actually. So how do we go about getting something like that done here at EVIT? What do we need to do, or what do I need to do
Want me to answer?
to move in that direction? I think that would really help our construction area, in the construction, science, technology professions, which they are. The Department of Education considers construction technology and science now at the Arizona. And since it's a big deal in Arizona, from governor on down, that it should be something that we can look at. Now, it may be that I can get some of the industry to help on something like that, but I think we need to do something. Because there's nothing about construction that's not math, not science, and not technology, nothing.
Yeah, I think and we agree, and that's part of the reason why I think we brought this conversation back to the governing board. I think that there are a number of different ways in which we can potentially move forward to try to accomplish some of what you're describing. I think part of the credentialing is driven by the state in terms of the exam that they require individuals to be highly proficient. But I do believe that there are different ways we can go about addressing some of those issues. And we can have a system in place in which we're able to justify and demonstrate all of the embedded credit opportunities that would exist, and it still wouldn't not necessarily produce the benefit that we would want it to produce if they're not accepted by our sending districts.
No, I understand, I
And-
get that, so
yeah.
we can work at the ascending district
Yeah.
right there too.
So, and to just piggyback on Mr. Fleetham's question, I think a real easy way to look at the math, because I know we looked at math for construction once upon a time. And when we looked at if you got your degree in construction management, there was not enough math prereqs to meet that. But if you got your degree in construction engineering, there was enough math that they could then sit, because there's a certain required credit hour of upper division, and it's very specific. I think it's 24 hours.
Yes.
It's 24 hours, and like construction management didn't meet it, construction engineering did.
I can
However,
understand construction management not meeting it.
so
Seriously.
Yeah.
but there's the other way around it, which is what I have always proposed, and I really would ask us to look at this, and that is, why not hire a math teacher that comes in and teaches the math part of construction to multiple groups? Right? Like you could have 2 or 3, and they could teach it in welding too, because math is used in welding. Like it's more than a singular, one math instructor in a 2.5-hour block could teach in 3 different classrooms and meet the competencies as long as they were crosswalked. And same with English. One English teacher could teach English in, I'm going to tell you, your CNA course has a ton of English because you have to document and you have to do evidence-based research, right? So all of your health, you could embed English. You can probably embed English in cosmetology, or it's multiple places where we could embed it with bringing on the highly qualified. I say you go the back route because it is hard to get your industry people certified and pass the exam because the school districts are so picky about having an education degree and an education background. This is a way to do it through the back door, and you can actually increase your class size as well because now you have 2 instructors in one
Teachers
space.
are gonna be looking for jobs, and there's
And
a
teachers
lot
are gonna
that
be
would-
looking for jobs
Yes.
outside of the
There's
regular
a
school.
lot
can
that would
tell
be
you
happy to
So
come
it's a
here.
big lift, but can the industry help us with that lift? In other words, there may be somebody in the industry currently that has the qualifications to get that certification that just hasn't done it.
Sure, but then they have to be willing to be here every single day and teach.
I understand.
Yeah.
But we gotta start someplace, so you have that.
It's a
and then
lot
they have be
easier
willing
to
do
bring
it.
the teacher in and have them do the legwork to crosswalk.
Oh, I got that. That's what we've been fighting for
Yeah.
years, right?
Well, and as, like I said, you know, the part of the goal is then that, you know, doing the big lift is in the crosswalk, right? I mean, the big lift is going through our programs and doing the crosswalk and taking it to ABOR and getting approved by the state so that we can pursue the opportunity that we're talking about here. I think that one of the things that has become most impactful to me in many ways since I've been at EVIT is to see students who oftentimes didn't view themselves as being academically driven become academically driven when the learning of the academics is done contextually and as applied work, not just regurgitated work in the classroom, right?
Applied.
And so the reason why I think this is so significant is that A, it is a heavy lift in terms of the crosswalks, because we would have to do that, or we'd have to pay somebody to do that. B, in terms of the certification and being able to, you know, go at it a number of different ways, whether it's getting industry involved or whether it's going about hiring, you know, traditional K-12 teachers. But then there's that third part that's the conversation with our sending districts, because currently in our IGA, which is going to be renegotiated next year, in our IGA, it specifically says the only content courses we can provide are in science. And so there's a bit of work that we'd have to be doing there as well. And so I didn't want to task us with a labor-intensive endeavor if it wasn't something that you all were going to, you know, want to pursue. Because like I said, it's a lot of work both internally and externally. And we don't have to decide tonight, but I think it holds an enormous amount of potential for our students to be able to benefit in ways that they're already benefiting, but would actually tangibly help them in terms of earning credits to graduate from high school.
So I'd just like to voice my opinion on this. I'm in full support of this. I think it's a priority. I think it also helps alleviate a couple of the other problems we have with the sending districts and the additional hours they're requiring the students, where you've got kids coming here that have to start their day at 6 in the morning in order to attend enough regular school hours, and then coming here where I think this might be able to qualify us to where the students could actually go to a regular hour
Get their
schedule
English
Yeah.
credits.
and get the credits. And I believe that Ms. Doolan's proposal of having the math teacher come in, not just for construction, but diesel mechanics, automotive, there's hydraulics and fire science, there's math and science that will apply to most of everything we do here. I think we should be able to get recognized for what
Yeah.
they're learning.
I think it's an amazing opportunity. Well, I'll just wait for my comments later. So if I'm hearing correctly, then this is something we'd be willing to pursue, and I can huddle the team up and see if we can't come back together and give you a more formalized proposal on what that needs to look like. Because I do think there's going to be some heavy lifting that has to get done, and I just wanted to get a sense of the board's perspective before we went down that road. So we'll come back to you in the next couple meetings and
Could I
more.
add one more point to this? What I'd like to do is, as soon as we know what that is, then I will, on my own, I will start working with the industry to find out where we can find some of these.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
And we may, who knows, we may find somebody that wants to sponsor. It can be surprising when you've got somebody that doesn't really know the way that things work here, that maybe I might come up with something that will work,
Yeah. No.
because it's different or something, so.
It's just, trust me, the only reason I'm talking so openly about this is because I was with John, when I was here that we tried to do the science. And it is it's really hard to get the school districts to sign on. And that's the most difficult piece. Everything you're talking about is easy compared to,
Look, it took me 4 years to get the Department of Education to call construction technology instead of something.
Is your mic on?
Is my mic on? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to it, please. Can't hear you.
So that's the first time I've heard that you can't hear. I said, I have worked with the Department of Education for 4 years to get them to call construction technology. So I get, just that was problematic. So I understand that it's not an easy lift, but just because it's not an easy lift doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
no, I agree.
We need to
So-
try.
I did have one more food for thought. There is an example of a JTED using your method that you proposed, bringing the teacher in to teach.
Who is
math.
it?
Pima JTED,
I knew it was Pima
It's
JTED
Pima?
because they sit on the Board of Nursing when I was there.
yeah. So
That was my idea.
they have a teacher that teaches math to multiple courses and they get the credit
Yes.
for that. But again,
May I
you have to
have
get
a-
the school districts to buy off on it.
Correct.
Yes,
And it's
Mr.
not easy to do.
Hold on, Mr. Covington.
Okay.
Are you
I
done?
have a friend with, you're talking about Pima, that taught down in the Tucson schools. He was teaching construction and had math in his classrooms. And his students actually, the teacher would try to explain the math teacher, and they got confused. They go up to the classroom and all of a sudden they get understanding of what in the world they're doing. They scored higher, it was geometry, they scored higher on the geometry test than the students that did not have construction.
Of course.
It's
It's
applied.
applied
Well,
science.
Applied, it makes
I've
sense
seen it
to them.
in South Dakota, I've seen it in other states. You get an understanding of what's going on. I was the kind of student that took geometry in high school, but I kind of understand the angles and stuff like this, but when you gave me a problem, I couldn't picture what in the world they're talking about. I needed a visual aid to learn what's going on and working on stuff. That's my dummy part. Thank you.
Okay,
So we'll pull together a more succinct proposal,
Mr.
and we'll
Howe.
come back to you again in the future.
thank you. Okay, number C, criteria for new program EVIT and satellites. This is another discussion to Dr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Governing board members, in April, we begin the process of proposing program approvals for our satellite districts. And that's a process that we are required to do every single year. The process has been a bit disjointed the last 2 years, partly because we haven't been able to be out on campuses as much as we would have wanted to. And so the process in and of itself is going to have to change a bit, in my opinion, as we kind of start coming out of the pandemic. But I do think that there's value in beginning a conversation, whether it's applicable to this year's approval or to future year approvals, on what from the governing board's perspective is the requirements in order to have a program be approved, both for EVIT, because I think sometimes we're quick to point the finger outside, and we've got to make sure that we're recognizing that we inside have to do some things differently as well, but also for our satellite districts. And the document I gave you in your backup is a portion of the document that we use when we monitor programs out at the sending district, or when there are new program requests from the sending districts. And this was a document that was created a number of years ago, and it was driven entirely by pulling out a state statute criteria that statute says must be in place for a course or a class to be considered a career and technical education program, or class. And so you see all the different indicators, whether there's percentage of hands-on learning, the scope and sequence, specialized equipment, what CTSO, I mean, all of those indicators that we go through every single year in terms of monitoring the program are all criteria that is created by statute that defines what a career and technical education program is. And so that in some ways is a very simple process. The challenge, I think, becomes at times when we begin having programs, new program requests potentially, that are duplications or duplicates of programs we have here, or are potentially expensive programs that we have here, or you look at programs that potentially don't have a number of students that go from first to second. So my whole point on this is that it will be helpful, I think, for the administration to kind of get a sense from the governing board, is the criteria for program approval simply what's established by statute, or is there desire to look at additional things? And if so, then Kevin and I can spend time digging through more statute to see what that means, because I do think that there's a possibility that we'll have new program requests that may or may not present themselves to you as being questionable programs to be requested, unless we're just using the criteria in the statute. That makes any sense? I think Ms. Boggs is giving me this, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm-
All right.
So, so the discussion is whether or not we keep our requirements with the statutes?
No, we
stay
have
or
to keep these
add?
requirements.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
do we add things to that?
And that is the question, yes.
I'm a little uncomfortable with expanding or interpreting the statute beyond what it means. There are a number of, even if it's a duplicating program, there's a significant number of the secondary students in our sending districts, especially in the Title I schools. EVIT's just not even a possibility for them to attend due to lack of credit, time, there's 100 reasons. And I think that's where the train went off the tracks a couple years back, is when we started adding interpretation or things that are over and above statute. So I would have a hard time going there. I think we need to keep it to the statute. And, not throw down these lines in the sand, and, because it just doesn't work out.
So I hear what Mr. Lane's saying, and I will agree. I think that there are some students that just can't get to EVIT, but this is where I go back to, you want a duplicate program, we want embedded credit. Both help the student who can't get where they need to get. And are we doing what's right for students, or are we all trying to hold on to our magic dollars? So I'm full support in those schools being able to offer those programs on their campus, as well as I'm full support of EVIT being able to embed credit on this campus. If we all put students first, that's what it looks like. It's not pitting each other against, it's we all working on the same playing field and doing student-focused work. Empower the kids, stop worrying about who's getting the dollar for every second. So that's my 2 cents, where I see where Mr. Lane's coming from. His concept of they can't come because they can't afford it because of credits, right? They're far behind, they need credit recovery. Well, maybe they could if they would let us embed credit. Or maybe it's still better for them to stay on the home campus because they have too much credit to make up. Why do we not do both and keep our eye on students? That's where I would like to revisit it, because I think that's a negotiation.
So I struggle with the duplicate courses. We're not competing with each other. We're trying to meet the needs of kids.
Agreed.
And just plain and simple, there are literally 100 reasons why a kid can't or won't come here. But that doesn't mean we don't need to help them to meet their potential.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Lane, you make a really valid point. I think that is kind of where the train started going off the track a few years back.
That is where it went off.
I would, maybe push back a little bit and say that maybe how that issue was broached was as problematic as the issue itself. And hopefully we will approach issues differently as we move forward, so we're not causing some of those same dynamics. Board Member Doolin, I think you make a really valid point that if we're going to talk about doing what's in the best interest of kids, we have 2 items here tonight for discussion that ultimately seemingly can work congruently
Together.
in order to do what's in the best interest of kids. I'm not the glass half empty dude, but that still at some point comes down to the board's willingness to have that kind of negotiation, right? Because at the end of the day, what we've been approving so far has just been what is defined by statute, and we've accepted that we won't offer any other embedded credits than the science.
I think we have to push back against that. That's my personal opinion. I mean, I think we have to push back and say that's not what's best for students.
I
We're
second
not
her opinion.
keeping students as a priority. And if you look at the legislation and the evidence, and I will happily go in and pull all the evidence about applied knowledge and how it benefits students, and I will go to toe with that because there's more research out there that supports that.
They know that.
They know that. So I say we come to the table and we have these conversations, and if they choose to say, no, we're not willing to play ball, that's on them, and we're gonna continue to play ball with those who wanna play ball.
You know, we need to always work on having a collaborative effort rather than us and them.
Well, totally agree. I mean, believe me, I'm not an us and them kind of guy. But, you know, collaboration's a two-way street.
It is.
And doing what's right for kids sometimes requires both sides to
little
want to do
bit.
that.
It is, and some districts will play along and some
True.
won't, but sometimes they'll see what's going on and
And
then
then
say,
they'll
hey,
come
that
along.
was.
Sometimes it only takes one.
Okay.
I think they're faced with losing
Right.
so many
Build on
students.
success.
They're-
Covington has something to say.
Mr. Covington, go ahead.
Hi.
Thank you. Part of the problem I see is duplicate programs at their site and ours, is we've spent a lot of money, and we're spending a lot of money right now, growing with brick and mortar out on the other campus. And we spend money to improve ours. Also, we teach a 2-hour class, they teach an hour class. It takes 2 years for them to get as much knowledge as they will get in 1 year at EVIT. Duplicate programs, I think, you know, especially the ones that Dr. Wilson said, that we spend a lot of money and putting them on the campus so they can come here and learn it. And I just want to know how the satellite schools are going to get all the money to, if they're going to have a duplicate course. You know, it's kind of mind-boggling to me, but, you know, but I think, you know, duplicate courses, I think we should try to avoid them. I think we need to make sure that we do keep students on our campus. If not, it's going to be vacated.
Yep.
But part of the reason students might not be on our campus is that we're not offering the best product. And I've brought this up before.
That's fair.
That if I look at the pass rates in some of the sending schools previously, not this year because they didn't do any hands-on, so they are not good for this year, but in the past years, they were outperforming EVIT. That's when we have to take that look in that you're talking about, and we've got to improve what we're doing here. Now, that's not across the board with all programs, but I really, I do agree with Bob that there is a big picture here, and we have to look at the whole thing. Could we get a work group meeting to discuss this? Would everyone be willing to do that? So we can,
I will.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I guess the cautionary piece I would have is that from my perspective, and you all may disagree with this, from my perspective, the work group is going to chart a course for what 21, 22, 23 looks like.
22, 23.
Because I think part of where the wheels on the wagon fell off the time before is that it was the bottom of the ninth and the rules changed, or were attempting to be changed.
agreed.
And I think that creates the problem. And so if the commitment on this board's part is that between now and August, you will come to some consensus as a board on what you'd like to see, then that gives us from August forward to make sure that we're working with our partnering districts in a collaborative manner, that when Kevin and I begin the process of renegotiating the IGA, there's some parameters around that, so that we're in a position to not do what we did 3 years ago, which missed the mark because of how we did it, not what we were trying to do, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we have to be very open and deliberate too, because, you know, all it takes is somebody to get the wrong impression and start the ball rolling.
Correct.
And so, you know, it's got to be open, above board, and it can't ever get the, you know, it has to be put out as a collaboration, not this is the way we're going to do things now. And
No, I agree.
It's
I
just-
agree. And I think part of,
it's going to be hard.
Oh, it's gonna be really hard.
And it'll be a miracle if you get anything off the ground for 22, 23.
I'm a miracle worker, Mr. Lane. I think I think for us to do that hard lift though, I think part of what, my perspective, part of where I think things went south is I don't think there was consensus and belief on the part of the district, meaning EVIT, about what the next best steps should have been. I think it was a decision that was made by administration, and therefore there was a disconnect. And so to me, the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because it is a hard lift. But I think if there's consensus and direction from EVIT's governing board, then you will help in that hard lift as well, because there won't be the disconnect coming out of our organization, which I think caused some of the issues the time before.
New administration.
There is new administration, there's a new board. I think there's a great opportunity that we've seen that I think, given, the pandemic has been a horrible situation for everybody to live through. At the same time, I think it's made us realize that education can look differently and can be different and still get benefit to kids and still protect the integrity of the organization. I think to Mr. Hart's point that we have Cave Creek and we're going to have Santan Valley. For kids to schlep all the way over here at times, that's a huge it's a huge commitment. And so through the embedded credits, can we help create opportunities that allow that to happen and the kid not have to take a 0 hour or an 8th hour? And in doing so, can we have programs, even if they are duplicated, that allow there to be quality given to those students in that segment of the CTED? So I think it's a really neat opportunity. But again, like the first, and they were kind of together, I wanted to get a sense of where the board was coming from so that we would then start doing some of that heavy lifting, and we'll bring it back to you. I think a work session, Ms. Doolin, makes sense. And like I said, to me, this is something that we need to have a better handle on before we get into next school year, because we're already too far into this year, but it's a next year opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 8, which is staff reports, which happens to be Dr. Wilson yet again.
It's the Chad Wilson Show.
The agenda.
Yeah, that's it.
He wanted to talk tonight.
Yeah, that's it. This is one time. So I put next to you a memo. I tried to get it done before break, but I didn't, so I apologize. Those of you that are online, I sent it to your email. Get it? And there's just a couple things I want you to be aware of. Every single year, EVIT does an EVIT Expo. That typically happens in January, and it's a way for us just to kind of help our community get in contact with us and be here with us and experience us. And, it's actually a really wonderful event. And certainly we couldn't do the typical expo that we do normally because obviously the requirements of size and different parameters. And so what we're opting to do is called a virtual expo, in which we're inviting families, parents, students to attend, and you'll see the dates. There's 6 different dates from 5 to 7 based on programs in which the students and parents register. They get a video of the program. There's instructors that are there. They're talking about the curriculum. There's a Q&A opportunity. And again, just the thinking of ways in which we can try to get parents and students connected to us and opportunities for next year that potentially they wouldn't be able to get without doing something different like this. So far, we have the numbers now, 670 students that are registered, the registrations for the Expo. What's interesting about it is that our Expo, traditional Expo, wasn't really an enrollment mechanism. It was more just of kind of a community service engagement. What I like about this is that we have 670 registrations for the virtual Expo of individuals that are interested in EVIT to attend, not coming here to just see how cool we are. I mean, this is actually interested for them to attend. And so I'm excited about that. I give the faculty and staff a ton of credit because it's been a lot to try to switch into doing something a bit differently. Our hope is that by the time we get into the April actual Expo, that we're over 1,000 that are registered for those different days that will log on and participate. And I hope that helps kind of build capacity of our enrollment. I've talked to you before, enrollment is a bit tricky this year because of the pandemic. We just really don't know where we're going to settle. We talked about how our partnership with Fountain Hills is changing, and it's moving back to more of the satellite and so programming. And we currently have about 280 Fountain Hills unified students that are enrolled in EVIT classes, that when we revert back to the satellite, we automatically are going to have that number not in the enrollment. So that, coupled with the pandemic, we just weren't quite sure where we're gonna be. But as of this morning, we have about 3,318 students enrolled, and this is the memo I gave you, with about another 250-ish applications still out there. To put in perspective, we chart our enrollment, weekly. And in comparison, we didn't have an enrollment date last year, March 15th, but in comparison, March 24th, 2020, so an additional 10 days from now, our enrollment was 3,201. So about 10 days ahead of schedule, comparing, enrollment to enrollment, we have about 100 more kids this year enrolled than we had last year.
I'm not surprised.
Now,
Is this
is
on
that?
social media?
The what?
Is this on social
Yeah,
media?
it is, and it will be more. I mean, I think one of the things that will be interesting for us is, I'm Mr. Glass half full dude as it relates to the enrollment. That's why the 10% decline was built, because I'm conservative in nature. But we're cautiously optimistic that we're not going to have that 10% decline. In fact, that we may actually be at or above where we were this year. So that would be a good thing. I mean, that would be a good problem to have more students than what we were anticipating or expecting. The only cautionary piece to it is that we're far more proactive this year in our online registration. And so one of the concerns I have is that, are we just registering more kids more quickly and we're going to hit a plateau? Or is this really a reflection that we're running, not just 100 as it says, but going back to the Fountain Hills, we're actually running 200 more kids, 300 more kids than we normally would be this time last year. So, I'll bring that enrollment update to you a couple, periodically as we finish the fourth quarter, just so you guys can get a sense on how our numbers are looking. And then last thing from my report, the McCarthy and Mr. Casaro at Power have suggested the first part of April to do tours. The bricks are coming out there, and they're going to start laying bricks in the next few weeks, and so they thought that would be a good time. If you're interested, if you just reach out to Tammy, and she'll arrange. Joey from McCarthy said he'll take whoever wants to go out whenever they want to go out, and I know you all got your busy schedules, and so to try to say everybody be there at 5 on Tuesday may not work. It may be that Mr. Hart can go Wednesday at 4, and Miss Boggs, can go Thursday at. Just let Tammy know, and she'll arrange it, and with McCarthy to take you on a tour out there. Okay? That's all I got.
That's it?
It's okay.
Any questions? Anything for,
I had a when you mentioned the online, I've been posting this EVIT thing on
Expo.
LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere. What's interesting is, as Mr. Hart talked about Cave Creek, and I've got, with Scottsdale School District, some of it goes way out there. An hour drive for a student to get here. These kids that are out there can do this virtual tour and their parents and get a grasp of what's going on at EVIT and then make a decision that they otherwise may not have taken because, hey mom, hey dad, it's, an hour after work or an hour in the middle of the day. And so this is a marvelous way to do this. And it might not be a bad thing to have it going on a regular basis.
No, I think we will. I think it's a great. I think we will all. I think we'll have our traditional expo again next year for different reasons, because I do think that's a neat opportunity for our community to get on our campus. But we will still probably do a version of this year's moving forward for the exact reasons that you just said. I mean, we may get 3,000 people here for our expo. But not all 3,000 are kids or have kids that may want to attend. Some of it is the person driving down the street and they see the helicopter, right? Here, we know that it's going to be 1,000 potential students that are going to engage in a way that potentially we wouldn't have had the opportunity before.
okay, I just have a couple things. I know you're all shocked. One, would it be possible, and I can do it in the next item as well, but I would like to have our marketing people present to us. I want to know what's happening with marketing, how we're getting the word out, what's happening with the social media as well, and also an update on how we're reaching out to our sending districts and making sure we're supplying them with what they need to help enroll students. I feel like we have some gaps in how we communicate, and I would love to hear how we're going to bridge those gaps and what the marketing plan is moving forward as we start enrollment season. And then I'd also like to make a request for this next year with the Expo, that we actually do 2 expos, one on each campus. It's time we let Power start venturing
Being Power.
in, let them be Power and we will be Maine.
Well, we're going to all be one. We are
Yes,
all one.
but you get my point.
But
They
yes,
need
I
an
do.
opportunity
Yes,
to
absolutely.
celebrate them instead
Yeah.
of always coming here.
No, I agree. And
That community out there really wants to,
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, and we've said this before, that it's not going to be too much down the road before we have to start discussing expansion of industrial trades out at the Power Campus, simply because we know that as Santan builds, we're not gonna have a lot of the programs that we only have here. It's just gonna be too far for folks to come, and so,
Yep.
you know, that campus is gonna expand and continue to expand. I think that's a valid point.
Okay, moving on to calendar. That's kind of your calendaring. I did it early. Anybody else have anything they would like to recommend for the calendar moving forward? Hearing nothing, then we'll shut calendaring. Can you tell me when our next board meeting is?
29th of March. March 29th. And that's the dinner,
Okay.
the good thing on that agenda, that there's not gonna be a lot of Dr. Wilson speaking, so that's gonna make, I think, it go a little bit more user-friendly.
Man, you got
Okay.
2 weeks to wind
know,
up for
brother,
that. Don't speak too soon.
Celebration.
Okay, so this one's for you, Mr. Covington. It's B, adjournment.
I so moved, thank you.
I will second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote, and we'll do it all in favor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
all. I
your
appreciate it.
attendance.